So I've made it to Rome, the last European city that is on my trip. And I'm just taking a walk from the train station to my hotel. I'm staying here longer than any other city so far. I'm staying here for full 5 days. So that's going to be fun. But it also means I can sort of take it easy because I have the time enough to see everything that I want to in the city. For now, I'm gonna get something to eat and just take a rest. So my hotel happens to be like 5 minutes away from the Colosseum, which is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it's a little too late today for me to go in and see it. I've already missed the kind of cutoff point, just by like 5 minutes though, unfortunately. But I'm here for 5 days, so I'm gonna definitely have the time to go in and look. What's interesting to me is how pockmarked the whole structure is. If you look at it, there's just like all these holes in the wall. I don't know what that is. Maybe they were used to secure something in the past, or maybe it's like from cannonballs that they've shot at the Colosseum, although I don't know how much sense that makes. It's an incredible structure though, it's huge. And the stone walls are just incredibly, incredibly thick. But there's a lot of stuff to see. So I'm going to take a walk through the park, see 50 or so ancient Roman structures, and then head back to my hotel because I have a meeting at 5, which is in just under an hour and a half. Now behind me is the Colosseum, and in front of me is the Arch of Constantine. And he's a very interesting emperor because he was the one, well, he did a lot of things. He unified the empire, which was in civil war, and he converted the empire to Christianity, and he founded Constantinople. So he did a lot of impressive things that had a huge impact on the empire for like the rest of its existence and the rest of Europe as well. One interesting thing about this is that when he was building it, there were not any craftsmen who could create statues of similar intricacy that they had previously, that they had in previous kind of conquerors and conquests. So rather than having something kind of suboptimal and not looking good, Constantine came up with the idea that he would just take the statues from other existing Roman structures and set them up. So if you look up there, that, for example, was not created in the time of Constantine. It was created hundreds of years before, during the late Republic and early Empire, when Rome was really at its peak. Now this great triumphal arch, you would think maybe it commemorates something very important, a conquest that Rome had, but in reality it just commemorates the end of another civil war, which Rome had a whole lot of them. Basically every time the emperor died, they had a civil war during the time Constantine was alive. He was also the real emperor who moved the capital away from Rome. It used to be in Rome, then it was in Milan, and then he went and built Constantinople for his namesake, which really ended the kind of Roman period of the Roman Empire. At that point, it's really starting to divide into the Eastern and Western Roman Empire, creating even more division. It's very interesting. You can't walk through it, unfortunately, because there's a fence, but this kind of period in history, for me personally, is just the most interesting. I'm gonna take a walk, see what else I can see. So you might have seen in that park back there were ruins on the side of either side of the park, but they were fenced off with these tall green fences. And I was thinking about that, and I think I know why. I think it's because if they didn't fence it off, people would be living under these ancient Roman ruins. I can tell Rome has a homeless problem that seems, at least on first glance, in just the first couple hours I've been here, seems comparable to New York's homeless issue. Rome so far is definitely the most touristy city I've been to in Europe. You know, it's very similar to New York, where you have these people walking up to you wanting to buy something, or not buy something, wanting to sell you something, or wanting to give you something for free, but then, you know, there's always a catch afterward, or wanting to get you on their ride, or whatever it is. You see a lot of that in Rome, very similar to New York, and I have the face for it, but I don't come across the world to experience the same sort of stuff I do in New York. I come to experience a more relaxed atmosphere, but already I found myself reverting back to my New York demeanor extremely quickly. And if you don't know what that means, it means you walk straight, you look people right in the eye, and you make this face. You look right at them. You know, you look angry. If you look angry, people won't mess with you. They say, oh, this guy, he doesn't look like a tourist. He looks like he knows where he's going, even though I don't know where I'm going. But I guess every city faces that issue, some more than others. It certainly won't detract from my experience. And there's certainly a whole lot to see in Rome, especially considering it's got a few thousand years of constructive history with all these buildings. Like these buildings I'm passing right now, it's probably a 2,000-year-old building or something like that. I don't know that, but it could be. And there definitely are buildings that old around. Well, for now, I have that meeting in like half an hour, so I'm gonna head back to my hotel and get ready for that. Today in Rome, I've seen the something fountain, and now I'm at the Spanish Steps, and I looked at the Spanish church at the top of the Spanish Steps. It was cool. But what I'm going to do in about an hour and a half, and I have to walk there, is do the pilgrimage, the Christian pilgrimage to Rome, to the Vatican. And I'm going to see the Basilica, which you can see from far away, so I know which way I'm going. And see all the archaeological sites and whatnot, which I'm excited for. That's going to be fun. But one thing about Rome compared to the other cities I've been to so far on this trip is it is hot. And keep in mind, it's like mid-November at this point. I think we're in winter. Maybe it's winter starts in December, whatever. But it is late fall at least. And it is like 80-something degrees at least. It is incredibly hot, and I'm sweating. I know maybe I don't look it, but I'm just gonna try to stay in the shade, keep cool. I'm definitely getting some ice cream if I see it. For now, just the walk to the Vatican from where I am. It'll be fun. privilege of going to Mass at the Basilica, right up at the front. And I think I understand how my father felt when he was a kid going to Catholic church. He told me once that, when I was young, nobody spoke English in church. They spoke in Latin. And here, I don't think they were speaking Latin, but they were speaking Italian, which for me might as well be Latin, because I didn't understand anything. So I sat there and then tried to remember what you're supposed to say when you respond, which, of course, here it's in Italian or Latin, the response, but I at least know the English response for most of the things. So that was good. But I have to say, it was very, very cool. I feel very fortunate to have a Mass going on Friday night, literally exactly when I walked to the front. There was like 30 seconds until I could get in, which I feel very fortunate about. I didn't get to go to the top of the dome this time, but I'm sure there'll be another time. I got here too late in the day. But if you see behind me, there's a Swiss Guard right there and there, which is kind of cool. For now, though, it's about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening. I'm going to take the 45-minute walk back to the Colosseum where my hotel is and grab something to eat on the way. So far, this has been a really good day. I picked up some souvenirs for some family and friends who I know are Catholic, so I can give them something for my trip, and that'll be good. Besides that, though, very impressive church. Probably, I think, the biggest church I've ever been in my entire life, which is interesting. This city is definitely as or more touristy than New York, it feels like. Albeit it's the weekend, this is like super crowded. I guess everyone wants to see the Roman ruins over there, which I still haven't had the chance to see because the only reservation I could get was tomorrow on Monday. So I'll have to wait for that. For now though, I'm going to take a walk, try to find something good to eat. Hopefully nothing too touristy, nothing too crowded. All the places I've walked by have been completely full. I can't imagine what this is like in the up season, because right now it's the down season. I'm in the Colosseum, and I have to say, it is oppressingly crowded here. It's like I guess it's the most popular attraction, so everyone wants to come, which is great that everyone wants to see it, but it's like so incredibly crowded. You're just pushing your way through people to see anything, and then what you're really seeing is the backs of all the people in front of you. Over here, I kind of found a place that was a little bit less crowded, but just temporarily, of course. I feel like they should keep it open at night too. I'm sure that would alleviate some of the crowd. Set up some lights, it would look pretty good, I think. But this is pretty cool. You can see it's been repaired like 1,000 times, which is also pretty cool. So it is Monday, November 20th at night on my last day in the European Union. I've sort of been on my trip for a while now, for over a month and a week basically, and I feel like I've gained a real appreciation for the size of the world. Both that it's gigantic, it's huge, and it's actually incredibly small, because I can go anywhere in less than a day of travel. You can be anywhere in the world basically, which makes it small. But also, I'm something like 8,000 miles from home. Who knows, something like that, which makes it incredibly big. It's fitting that I'm in Rome for the last day of my trip, because I think Rome best sums up my feelings about Europe in general. I think Rome is kind of the best example of my feelings, and those are that Europe is a continent past its prime. It's a continent with all its interesting events and glory behind it. And everyone who's still here, everyone who's left, is just coasting on the momentum given to them by their predecessors. Nowhere is that more true than Rome, where every 50 feet there's another monument that's greater and grander and required 100 times more man hours and effort than what is being built now. Looking at the Colosseum, this was a monumental construction, yet they don't build Colosseums anymore. Their primary concern in Europe, it seems to me, is living a good life, which you can't fault anybody for wanting to live a good life, but in 500 years, nobody's really going to care how people were living today. They're going to look and see, what did the people living today do? And in Europe, to me, it feels like they're not doing very much besides enjoying the fruits of the labor of the people who came before them. You just see it in the attitude, in the mental state of the people you meet and the people you talk to. Their primary concerns aren't with how are we going to ensure either Europe or our country within Europe is going to be doing well today and in the future. Their primary concern is, how can I end up in a system that just benefits me? How can I manipulate the system so that I am the beneficiary of all the excess production of the world? It's hard to exactly put into concise words my feelings on this, but to me it feels... it's sad, it's disappointing that you're seeing a whole continent past its prime. And it was in a prime at one point, so there's a lot of interesting stuff to see from before, stuff that was built 100 plus years ago. But it seems that there's nothing new that's worth seeing. I think the supreme disappointment, the biggest disappointment I had on my whole trip, was seeing the European Parliament, which, if you go back to my Belgium video, you can actually see. I took a video of the inside. It looked like a high school, or let's say a college, if we're being generous. It looked like a college assembly room. It was that sort of quality of construction. It was not impressive at all. It had no sticking power with me. So looking at it, it just makes me feel that the Europe of today is unconcerned with the construction of important and grand things. The Europe of today is primarily concerned with, how can we just live well? And I said that before, there's nothing wrong with wanting to live well, but I think personally I feel there is something seriously wrong with wanting to live well at the expense of the long-term success of your nation, of your continent, whatever group you want to identify with. I don't know. It's not the sentiment that I see in the United States, that's for sure. It is very different. People in every country I visited, in every city I visited, seem unconcerned with the long-term production and prosperity of the places they live. They're more concerned with how can we live well today. And the only exception to that in the people that I've spoken to is people in Europe, more than the United States, care about climate change, it seems. But otherwise, they are unconcerned with the future prosperity of their nation. It is something I've been trying to do, is been trying to express what I'm trying to say now in words, concisely. I've been trying to do it my whole trip, and it's impossible for me so far. It's just incredibly difficult, but I hope what I'm saying now somewhat translates to the idea of past glory and future decline is what I sense when I look at Europe. People live well, and there's good food, and it's extremely comfortable. But tomorrow is probably going to be less than today for the continent. And I think that trend will go for a long time unless something changes. And from the many people I've spoken to on this trip, the many different cities and places and peoples I've seen, it seems pretty consistent. All we're worried about, all people seem concerned about, are the short-term gratification, completely ignoring the long-term prosperity. Like, to even consider long-term prosperity is almost offensive to people. It's to say, well, we aren't worried about that. We aren't concerned about how much our country produces because who cares? Maybe it's a disconnect of understanding between the consumption and the production, thinking, oh, we could just consume forever without producing anything more. I'm unsure. And I'm unsure if this is different than how it used to be, but looking at the monumental constructions, like the Colosseum that stands behind me, I feel that the sentiment was different in the past, and it changed, and it declined. And not in the past 2,000 years, like since Roman times, but in the past 100 years. I don't know. As I said before, what I'm saying is incredibly difficult to put into words, and it's trying to put a general sentiment into words that are consistent and make sense. Hopefully, maybe on some reflection, because I'm going to see different parts of the world after this trip, I'll be able to put it into clearer terms for you, and it'll make sense. But for now, thank you for watching. I'm glad you've come with me on this long journey from London to Rome and everything in between. And I hope you'll join me on the next part of my trip.